Have you ever stopped to think that perhaps the biggest obstacle in your life isn't a lack of money, or a lack of time, or a lack of talent? What if I told you there's a habit so common that millions of people repeat it every day, believing they're doing what's best for themselves when in reality they're feeding anxiety, exhaustion, and the feeling of never being enough? The most curious thing is that while much of the world is chasing after more productivity, more success, and more speed, there is one country where many people have learned a completely different lesson, a silent lesson, almost invisible, but powerful enough to transform lives. This story begins on an ordinary morning in Japan. It wasn't even 6 o'clock yet. The streets remained almost empty. The air was cool, and only the distant sound of birds broke the silence. A gray-haired gentleman walked slowly down a small street lined with cherry trees. He didn't seem to be in a hurry. He wasn't looking at his cell phone. He wasn't walking like someone who was behind the times. Every step seemed to have a purpose. When a young executive rushed past him, holding a coffee, talking on the phone, and looking at messages at the same time, the old man simply smiled. There was no judgment in that smile, just understanding. A few seconds later, the young man tripped on the sidewalk. The coffee fell. The phone slipped from my hand. He looked at the clock, took a deep breath, and let out a long sigh of frustration. The man approached, helped pick up the cell phone, and said just one sentence, a phrase so simple it could easily go unnoticed. But that completely changed the way that young man viewed his own life. He said, "When you're always running, you stop noticing where you're going." The young man thanked him politely. At that moment, those words seemed like just kind advice from a stranger. But days later, they would return to his mind, after weeks, after months, until he understood the true meaning. And perhaps you too are about to understand it today, because something curious is happening in the world. We've never had so much technology. We've never had so many tools to save time. We've never had so many apps promising productivity. And yet, there has never been so much anxiety, so much exhaustion, so many people waking up tired, feeling like they are living only to fulfill tasks. How did we get here? Perhaps because we've learned to believe that a better life always depends on doing more, faster, earlier, more hours, more effort. But what if we're running in the wrong direction? This question seems simple, but she changes everything. In Japan, there is a very old concept. He doesn't make the headlines. It doesn't usually go viral on social media. It doesn't promise results in 7 days. Even so, it has spanned centuries, and it continues to influence people who live some of the most balanced lives on the planet. Throughout this video, you will discover 7 Japanese habits that seem small at first glance. They are so small that many people ignore them. But that's precisely what makes them extraordinary, because profound changes almost never begin with major revolutions. They begin with small decisions repeated every day. Perhaps you're expecting to find a complex secret, a revolutionary technique, a hidden formula. But the Japanese have discovered something that the rest of the world often forgets. True transformation happens in everyday life, in the way you wake up. How do you talk to yourself? How he treats others? How does he, she react to problems? How to take care of your own mind? And most importantly, how do you choose to live when no one is watching? There's another detail that few people know. In some regions of Japan, there are communities where it is common to find people over 90 or even 100 years old maintaining an active life. They cultivate gardens. They walk every day. They talk to the neighbors. They smile easily. And many continue to find purpose even after retirement, not because their lives are perfect, but because they learned something that the modern world seems to be forgetting. You don't need to control everything to live in peace. This idea may seem strange, especially if you grew up believing that happiness depends on always achieving the next goal. But there's a huge difference between chasing dreams and to live permanently chasing something. Perhaps that's why so many people end up exactly where they dreamed of being, and yet they remain empty. Perhaps you know someone like that, or perhaps that person could be you. If you go, know that you are not alone. Millions of people carry with them every day the feeling that something is missing, even when they seemingly have everything. And that emptiness rarely disappears by buying more, working more, or by producing more, because it doesn't stem from a lack of achievements. It arises from the absence of meaning. It is precisely here that Japanese wisdom begins to reveal something surprising. She doesn't ask first, "How much have you achieved?" She asks, "Who are you becoming?" Do you notice the difference? A question measures results. The other measures transformation. And it is these small internal changes that end up creating big external changes. But there is one habit in particular. It's such a powerful habit that many consider it the foundation of all others. It's a silent custom, almost invisible. You've probably seen it in Japanese films without realizing its importance. However, researchers, psychologists, and scholars of human behavior believe that it helps explain why so many people are able to maintain discipline for decades without relying solely on motivation. When I first found out about this, I confess I was skeptical. It seemed too simple, until we realize that it's precisely the simple things we ignore the most. And perhaps you are doing exactly that right now. In the next chapter, we will learn about the first habit. At first glance, it will seem small, almost insignificant. But when you understand what really goes on inside the mind of someone who practices it daily, you may never see your own routine the same way again. Because some changes don't begin when we learn something new. They begin when we finally realize what has been right before our eyes all along. Have you ever promised yourself that you would completely change your life on Monday? Starting a diet, waking up at 5 in the morning, read 1 book per week, stop procrastinating, exercise every day, and for a few days, everything seemed to work, until without realizing it, you return to the exact same place. If this happened to you, know one thing. The problem was probably never his lack of discipline. The problem was the way you learned to view change. We live in a world that celebrates great transformations, before and after, fast results, radical changes, as if every great story begins with a single extraordinary moment. But the Japanese learned something completely different. They discovered that almost no true transformation happens suddenly. It is born silently, almost invisible, and it grows every day. There is a Japanese word that perfectly represents this idea: Kaizen. It can be translated as continuous improvement. But this translation still doesn't reveal its true depth. Kaizen means becoming a little better today than you were yesterday. Not perfect, not extraordinary, just one step better. It seems too simple. That's exactly what I thought when I first heard about that philosophy. Until we realize that our minds have been trained to disregard small improvements. Imagine 2 people. The first one decides to completely change her routine. Buy new clothes for the gym, download multiple apps, create the perfect schedule. He plans to change everything all at once. The second person does only one thing. She decides to walk for 5 minutes a day, nothing more. Who do you think will still be around after a year? The answer surprises many people, because our brains don't like drastic changes. He interprets abrupt changes as a threat. That's why we feel so much resistance when we try to transform our entire lives into just one day. The Japanese understood this long before science could explain it. They realized that small victories build confidence, and trust creates consistency, and consistency changes destinies. The young executive that morning began visiting the elderly gentleman every Sunday. Initially, I believed I would learn techniques to be more productive. I was expecting to receive formulas, secret methods, some kind of strategy that would change your career quickly, but instead the man simply invited him for a walk, for a whole hour, no cell phone, no rush, without objectives. The young man was confused. That seemed like a waste of time. On the third walk, he finally asked, "Master, when will the real learning begin?" The old man smiled. He looked at the rocky path ahead. Then he replied calmly, "We started 3 weeks ago." The boy didn't understand. Then the man pointed to a small tree planted beside the path. "Can you tell she's grown up?" The young man responded quickly, "No, it looks exactly the same." The old man then asked another question. "He is sure?" The two moved closer together. The tree had grown only a few centimeters, almost imperceptible, but its roots ran much deeper. That's when the man said something the young man would never forget. The biggest changes in life happen first where no one can see them. Those words kept echoing in his mind. That night, on his way home, he noticed something curious. For the first time in many years, he didn't open his laptop to continue working. He sat down on the balcony. He breathed. He looked at the sky. 5 minutes, that's all. He repeated it the next day. Then again. 5 minutes never seemed enough to change a life, but it wasn't the 5 minutes that mattered. It was the identity that was being built. Little by little, he stopped being someone who merely said he wanted a different life. He began to act like someone who was actually building it. That is the true power of Kaizen. He doesn't just change his habits, it changes who you believe yourself to be. And perhaps that's exactly what many people are missing. They try to change their actions without first transforming their identity. They want to run a marathon without first learning to enjoy walking. They want to write a book without developing the habit of writing a single page. They want to live in peace without reserving a single minute for silence. The Japanese believe that small actions repeated daily possess a power that large, occasional efforts can never achieve. Because success doesn't come from intensity, it is born from continuity. Imagine a drop of water falling onto a stone. A single drop seems insignificant, but thousands of them over time manage to shape the rock itself. Discipline works the same way. She doesn't impress on the first day, not even in the first week. But it completely transforms a life when we look back after a few years. Perhaps you're waiting for the perfect moment to begin. More time, more money, more motivation. But what if the ideal moment never comes? What if the only thing that truly separates the life you have from the life you want is a small decision you make today, not tomorrow, today? Because Kaizen doesn't ask how much you can do. He asks only one thing. What's the smallest step you can take right now? It may seem small, it may seem insufficient, but remember the tree. For a long time, nobody noticed that she was growing up. Even so, every day its roots grew stronger, and one day it would offer shade, fruit, and shelter. People would only see the result. But the real transformation happened much earlier, in silence, far from the applause, exactly as happens with any real change. In the next habit, you'll discover why the Japanese believe there's something even more important than working hard. This might explain why some people live for decades without losing their zest for life, while others feel exhausted even when they achieve success. The young businessman believed he had finally found peace. His anxiety no longer dominated his days as it once did. She had learned to slow down, appreciating small victories, living one day at a time. But even so, there was one question that kept coming back every night. As he watched the city lights through the apartment window, something inside felt empty. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't a lack of success either. It was a feeling that was difficult to explain, as if I were walking, but without knowing exactly where. The following morning, he returned to the old master's house. He found his Japanese grandfather sitting on the porch, silently watching the sunrise, holding his inseparable cup of green tea. Before the young man could even say a word, the old man calmly asked, "You're tired? Or is it empty?" The question struck the boy like a bolt of lightning. He had never thought that these two things were different. After a few seconds, he replied in a low voice, "I think I'm empty." The old man simply smiled. Then he pointed to a small wooden boat moored on the riverbank. "Is that boat broken?" "No." "Then why aren't you sailing?" The young man replied, "Because there's no one driving." The old man looked at the horizon again, and he said a phrase that would completely change his way of looking at life. Many people spend their entire lives rowing with all their might, without ever choosing a destination. Silence returned. But this time, that silence spoke volumes, more than any speech. We live in a time when everyone asks, "How much do you earn? What is your profession? How many followers do you have? What is your next goal?" But almost no one asks, "Why do you wake up every morning?" In Japan, there is a word that has spanned generations, a philosophy that is as simple as it is profound. His name is Iki. Many translate Ikigai as purpose in life, but this translation is still too small. Ikigai is that which makes you want to get out of bed even when no one is watching. It is the silent reason that makes life continue to have meaning. And perhaps that's exactly what millions of people are missing. There is no shortage of money. There is no lack of intelligence. There is no lack of ability. There's a lack of direction. The old man invited the boy for another walk. This time, they went to a small pottery workshop hidden among bamboo groves. Inside, there was a man who was almost 80 years old working. His hands bore deep marks of time. Even so, they molded the clay with impressive delicacy. Each movement seemed like a dance. The young man asked, "How many years have you been doing this?" The craftsman smiled. "For more than 60 years. The boy was astonished. "Haven't you ever gotten tired?" The old craftsman answered, without even lifting his eyes from the vase he was shaping. "I don't work to finish. I work because I love starting each day." The young man remained silent. Meanwhile, the grandfather simply watched. When they left the workshop, he asked, "Did you notice?" What did I realize? He wasn't making a vase. He was living his Ikigai. At that moment, the young man finally began to understand. Purpose is not a prize we find at the end of the road. It's the way we choose to walk through it. In the following days, he began to observe people differently. The florist who opened her small shop before dawn, the baker who smiled at every customer, the gardener who cared for each plant as if it were unique. None of them seemed rich, none of them were famous. But they all possessed something rare, a sparkle in their eyes, something that no amount of money can buy. The following week, the young man returned to the office. Nothing had changed. The computers remained the same, the meetings were all the same, the deadlines remained tight. But he had changed. For the first time, he stopped asking just, "How much do I need to produce today?" And he began to ask, "How can I improve someone's life today?" It was a simple question, but it completely transformed the way he worked. He started listening more, "Thank you again," helping without expecting recognition. Gradually, his colleagues began to notice something different. Her face conveyed calmness. His presence brought tranquility to the atmosphere. Without realizing it, he was inspiring other people. It was then that he understood another great Japanese lesson. True purpose never begins with you. He always reaches someone beyond you. Perhaps that's why so many people feel lost. They spend years trying to figure out what the perfect job is, the perfect house, the perfect salary, when perhaps the right question is much simpler. What small contribution can you alone offer to the world? You don't need to change millions of lives. Sometimes all it takes is changing one thing. Sometimes all it takes is listening to someone, to teach, to care, plant a tree, preparing a meal, to hug a child, or simply to be present. That afternoon, before parting ways, the old master handed the young man a small seed. It was so small it fit in the palm of my hand. The boy asked, "What should I do with it?" The old man replied, "Plants. Take care of her every day, and when she grows up, you will understand that the purpose was never in the tree. It has always been in the person who chose to take care of it." The young man squeezed the small seed between his fingers. At that moment, he realized something he would never forget. Happiness was never a place he needed to reach. It was hidden in the small choices made every day, and perhaps you too are looking for your answer far away, when she was always waiting, silently, inside you. Winter has arrived. For the first time since meeting the old master, the young businessman did not show up on Sunday, not even in the other one, not even the following week. The Japanese grandfather continued his routine exactly as he did every day. Before sunrise, she calmly swept the stone path. I watered the plants. She was preparing her green tea. I was watching the birds, and before going inside, he would cast a brief glance at the road, as if he knew someone would come back. Then, on a cold spring morning, the sound of footsteps echoed down the path again. The old man smiled even before raising his eyes. It was the young man, but there was something different. It wasn't her clothing, not even her hair, not even his posture. It was the sparkle in her eyes, the same brilliance he had seen in that old pottery craftsman, the same brilliance as the gardener, from the florist, from the baker. Now, he also carried that glow. The boy walked slowly towards the old man. He bowed respectfully, and he remained silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "Teacher, I've spent months trying to thank you for everything you've done for me, but I realized that there aren't enough words." The old man smiled, and he answered calmly, "Then don't thank me. Continue." The young man was confused. Continue? Keep living, keep being kind, keep planting, keep learning, keep making the same mistake, keep improving, because wisdom doesn't end when you learn. It begins when you share it. At that moment, the young man realized something he had never understood before. The old man never tried to teach techniques. He never tried to convince him. He never promised a perfect life. He simply showed one way. The rest, he needed to walk it himself. The two walked to the small tree, that same tree that months ago seemed too small to attract attention. Now, its branches provided shade. Small birds built nests among the leaves. Children were playing around its trunk. Without realizing it, she was already a part of other people's lives. The old man placed his hand on the tree. Then he looked at the young man. "Remember when you said she hadn't grown up?" The boy smiled. "Yes. She grew every day, you just couldn't see it." After a few seconds, the old man finished. "Just like you." Silence fell over that place, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind of silence that answers questions that no words can explain. While watching the wind slowly swaying the tree branches, the young man finally understood. For years, he spent his life trying to build a career, when in fact, I needed to build character. He spent years searching for success, when you should be searching for meaning. He tried to impress people, when I should be learning how to serve people. He tried to beat time, when I should learn to walk with him. At that moment, no award seemed important, no promotions, no recognition, because he had found something much bigger: peace, Not a perfect peace, but enough peace to continue living. On the way home, he walked back the same way he had months before, dropped his coffee and cell phone. He smiled to himself. He realized that nothing in that place had changed. The stones were still there, the trees too. The river continued on its course. Who had changed? It was him. And perhaps that's exactly what happens to us. We spend so much time waiting for the world to change. We forgot to look inside. The Japanese teach us that happiness rarely makes noise. She is enjoying her tea, which has been prepared with care. On the tree planted today, in honest conversation, in work done with dedication, out of respect for others, in silence, with gratitude, in the small choices we repeat every day. This is how great lives are built, not in a single extraordinary moment, but in thousands of seemingly ordinary moments. If you've made it this far, perhaps there is a reason. Perhaps some part of this story reminded you of something you had forgotten. Or perhaps she may have awakened something that has always been inside you. Now I would just like to ask one question. If in 10 years you meet the person you are today, would they be proud of the choices you started making after this video? Don't answer me. Answer for yourself. Because the answer to that question can completely change the course of your life. And remember, you don't need to change everything tomorrow. Just take the first step today. Small, silent, constant, just like a tree, just like the river, just like the sunrise, which never fails to happen. If this story touched your heart, write just one word in the comments: Kaizen. This word will show that you have decided to take the first step towards a more conscious life, with purpose and balance. And if you believe that more people need to hear messages like this in an increasingly fast-paced world, subscribe to The Japanese Way and turn on notifications. Every week, we share stories, philosophies, and habits inspired by Japanese wisdom to help you live with more calm, discipline, and meaning. Thank you for walking this far with us. May your journey be long. May your heart remain light. And may you find a new reason to keep growing every day.